All righty. Welcome, everybody, and welcome back to the Steps to Soul podcast with Chris Sater. I'm Brandon Bourgeois. Today, we're going to talk about what to expect from a good business broker or M&A advisor, and quite frankly, the firm as well, because the firm does matter. How you doing this morning, Chris?
I am doing well, sir. How are you?
Oh, we are getting through. Trained a new broker yesterday from North Louisiana. A little tired, but always glad to inspire the next person into the group, I should say. It's always good to see young energy. It's always fun.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. I brought up the topic, but let's talk a little bit about this. Many business owners don't know what to expect or demand, from I would say, professional business broker and advisor. Today, we're going to kind of break down the characteristics, processes, red flags, what kind of separates small firms from big firms, and kind of what works for you as a seller. Because there's no one blueprint for every business, every seller. A lot of firms operate differently. Brokers operate differently. This is an industry with a lot of subjective opinion and background. So there's no you have to do it this way. There's no perfect firm, but we're going to talk a little bit about what to expect as a seller, what you should expect from your broker in the selling process. As a buyer, this is great for you too, because it's going to help tell you what our role is with the seller so you understand how to best communicate with us. So if you're listening, buyers, this is a sneaky good one for you to get a really good insight to kind of how the operation works, how it all begins, so you know where to kind of engage with us properly. I know we talked about how to stand out as a buyer. Here's how to understand us better as a buyer and as a seller as well. So let's dive in. First thing is, what is what are business brokers? We're going to let's just start there. There's business brokers and M&A advisors, right, Chris? A lot of business brokers do go up into that lower middle market. And then when you think M&A advisor, I would truly define it more as those 50 million and up deals where you're doing a lot of Wall Street brokerage, series 7 licenses, Morgan Stanley, all those guys. The deals you hear about on TV, right? Not the ones that we're doing on the local level.
Yeah, for sure. You got the role of a business broker, M&A advisor. Too often, people think we're there just to find a buyer, but in reality, we're orchestrating a lot more to the process. You just don't see it. We're quarterbacking the deal from start to finish.
That's right.
My process starts with aligning valuation with market realities. I'm always dealing with that with some clients coming in the door and kind of getting them to showing them, hey, this is what the market's paying for your type of business. So yeah, we've got a lot of stuff that we work on, and we'll dive into that today.
You're right. We will. I think often people think our role is just go, like you said, go find the buyer. And there's a lot more to it if you're working with the proper firm and proper broker. Let's start with there. If you're looking for someone just to throw an ad out there and hope something happens, that's probably not the best fit for you. And quite frankly, you might get some results, you might not. And a lot of that will dictate what we're going to explain later in the street episode. We talk a lot about there's that divide, Main Street and lower middle market, the market differences. We'll talk on that too, just to highlight it here for everybody listening. There are a lot of similarities in what's going to be done. Often it's the terminology is a little bit different, but the overall approach is going to be similar. And I think sometimes business owners don't realize the approach is not that much different. It's just how you have to package the deal sometimes based on the size and type of buyer coming through the door. It's not some crazy magic difference, right? This is not a $500 million deal. If you're under $100 million, under $50 million, your deal overall beginning, start to finish structure is, as far as how you advertise and go to market and work with a broker, is not terribly different. And I think sometimes that gets, whitewashed and pushed under the rug and sellers don't understand. So let's dive right in. First off, what are qualities of a great broker and a great firm? First thing I would say, it's got to be knowledge and experience. A lot of brokers let's start this. You don't go to college to be a business broker, right, Chris? There's no college course that says, hey, be a business broker. There's no degree in this per se. A lot of it is people who've come from diverse backgrounds who understand business. And what I mean by that, these are often people who have been managers, former business owners, or people in executive positions that understand the more nuances of business. They're not someone doing the regular retail sales on the ground floor selling furniture or pushing product, knocking door to door. These are people who've had to manage people, look at P&Ls, look at balance sheets, understand financials, and be accountable for them. And I think that's something, if you're looking for a broker, don't just look for certifications. Look for their background, because that's going to tell you a lot about their business sense and their ability to understand deal structure and responsibilities of key people in key organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say one of the things that separates good brokers from great brokers is a great broker doesn't just list the business on websites and wait for buyers to come through the door. They're doing a lot more than that. They're waiting on
Hmm.
those buyers and they're going to come. But what the great broker does is they educate a seller, their client, on what drives value in their business. They're
Yes.
telling them where these blind spots are, how their business's story. They're telling the
Hmm.
business's story in a way that attracts very serious buyers. That's a key part of setting up everything. A
Hmm.
lot of great brokers, they do the work before they even list the business, and that's the
That's
difference.
right.
Don't inflate the numbers to win your listing. They don't sell you on some hype of how they can sell your business for
Hmm.
this astronomical number just to get you a listing. They're realistic with you, and that's a big
That's
part of
right.
being disciplined as a broker.
You're right, and that's about part being transparent and I won't say like a consultative approach. I see a lot of brokers just here's my role is just to find the buyer and get out the way. If you really want to get the most number of deals done and get the best deals forward, you have to kind of almost take it like a consultant approach. Like, hey, I'm going to work with you in every step of the way. You have a good broker has to have insights how to identify those key metrics you talked about, how to highlight and tell the story. That's not always easy to do, and that takes time and experience. For some people, it's finding an industry specialist. For others, it's finding a seasoned broker. Look, everybody has to get their start somewhere, right? But I would tell owners, if you're going for a one man operation, you're banking everything on that one person. So that one person may be very good at what they do. I'm not bashing any brokers out there that work on their own. Like, let's make that clear. This is not a swipe at anybody. The beauty of using a group like ours, and I want to highlight, is that we have a team. We have a lot of people. We're not just one broker out there on their own with limited funds. We are a group that pulls our resources, pulls our banking connections, pulls our marketing, and we have a great approach. And we understand the market where we work really, really well. How often have you called me about a deal up in North Louisiana and I knew about stuff with buyers and other sellers were doing all across the state in the Gulf South that I could pull from our different offices and use that experience, right? It's like, hey, we did multiple different deals. We've done over 850 in our group's history. Our own
Yeah,
internal comp database is fantastic. And we can share that amongst each other to give the best deal structure, to be creative, to understand how to fix problems, right?
yeah, absolutely. And not just our Louisiana to Florida team,
Mm-hmm.
but I tell people this a lot is that when we list a business that goes on the Sunbelt Network website
Mm-hmm.
and you've got 100 to 200 brokers immediately looking at it, going to their buyer pool and saying, hey,
Mm-hmm.
do I have somebody for this business that I've worked with in the past that's been waiting on a business of this type? And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, great resource to have a larger team working for you.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest resource, and I want to re hit this again because I kind of skipped over it, it's the strong relationships that our team can develop, not just amongst each other, amongst our network as a whole through Sunbelt, but lending. When you work with a lender as a broker and you can bring them a lot of deals and they understand your team and know your team does a good job and brings a good product to them, that lender is more likely to give you some flexibility in underwriting, right? How do you hear our Huey or another lender that you say, I got to go to bat in front of the credit committee, the underwriting process, but they know every deal you've sent us has been a good one. That gives you leverage as a seller and for a buyer working with us to know you're getting input in the right places to succeed. And I think too often you see independent groups and brokers that maybe don't have those connections. I'm not, this is not a swipe at them, but they throw stuff against the wall hoping it sticks. And that's not how you market. That's not how you find lenders. We don't chase referral fees. We chase people and have connections with lawyers and bankers that know how to get deals done, that don't blow them up and do what really is best for the client, right? They're not looking to make an extra buck. And that's so important to us that our clients understand that.
Yeah, it's important to have all those resources inside at your disposal, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
attorneys, CPAs, even wealth managers. I know you've run into quite a few of those lately. You've been talking to me about, and it's
Yeah.
great to be able to kind of tell clients as they're coming in the door, like, hey, we've got tax
Mm-hmm.
mitigation strategists that we can set up for you. We got
That's
wealth
right.
managers that can help you with that large sum of money that you're about to come into, because that's what we do. We create generational wealth for people. We're turning their
Mm-hmm.
non-cash asset into cash, and they've got to be able to do something with it pretty soon after the sale. And a lot of them are looking for those resources, and that's what we bring to the table.
You're not wrong at all. I've spoke at several of those groups recently here in the region, and it's amazing. You would think there's no swipe at them that a wealth manager or groups would have a little more understanding of how a business deal would happen. But many of them don't because they focus so much on investing the money. They have their niche. We have ours. But I love to go reach and teach people about what it is that makes a sale happen, how the financing works, how to prep the business. Because if they're working with the business owner to invest their money, and often their business is their largest asset, right, Chris? So it's like, where's that money going to go when it gets sold? We can, a role of a good broker too is having those connections in the community to know how to reach out and help people prepare in advance. We're helping you build value. A good broker is someone you can reach out to before the day of it's time to sell, or like we talked about in the last podcast, the big what if happens, the crisis emergency. Good brokers help their clients not just sell today, but prepare long in advance to maximize value and for deal structure. It's so important to understand how to get a deal structured. That is where my dad used to always say, the real work starts after there's an acceptance, whether it's an LOI or an offer to close. That's when we really put our skill set to the test, managing expectations, helping deal structure, being creative, and knowing where to spot flaws and anticipate roadblocks to fix those problems. Far too often, good brokers who don't do that allow things to ram into the deal and derail it or push it way out the way. A good broker anticipates that. And I told the person we trained yesterday, you need to develop that sense. A good broker sees problems coming as early as even just the interview stage with the seller, looking at the financials, as you mentioned earlier, preparing the business, helping the seller prepare it, seeing those issues and saying, hey, I see we got a customer concentration issue here, or I see this metric here we need to kind of look into. Let's work on this now so when we go to market, we can be flexible, we can be approachable, we can be presentable and attractive. That's what good brokers do. They find the values and often sometimes some of the flaws and help the seller understand it and then address it effectively.
Yeah, I think that's what we're really doing is we're managing a timeline, but we're
Mm-hmm.
also managing expectations. And lastly, we're
Mm-hmm.
managing emotions. That's the biggest thing that why business brokers, I think, will never go away. There's a lot of stuff that technology is starting to take over or can help with. You can plug numbers in and AI will give you a valuation, but it can't understand emotions yet. And
Human nature.
yeah, exactly. And so knowing when to get back with somebody or when to push a button or when not to push a button is the biggest key of that in what I do, because sometimes things need to breathe a little bit and sometimes you need a week to go by before
To
you even
digest.
yeah you digest it. And if things are
Mm-hmm.
moving too fast, sellers or buyers start getting a little skittish about, hey, wait, why is this happening so soon, or why is this coming into play right now? So that's a big part of what great business brokers do.
And that's a great point. You mentioned timeline moving too fast. It's also our job to kind of make sure we keep a pulse on what they understand. Because very often when we're working with someone, it's the first time they've ever gone through a business sale, whether on the buy side or the sell side, more often on the sell side. And when you're selling your biggest asset, you've never done this before, you've always been your own boss. That could be kind of a new feeling. And making sure everyone understands what they're getting into. I think, and you said setting expectations. It is so hard if you don't set them properly and help someone understand what they're buying and what they're selling and what their role is going to be in that transaction, pre, during, and post. If you don't set that, when the deal gets rolling, like you said, it gets moving quicker, things are going wrong. That's when the real flare ups happen. It's not the deal itself, it's that people didn't understand what they were getting themselves into. And then human nature kicks in. They get regret, they get frustrated, they be angry, they get confused. And that clouds their judgment and it clouds the ability to get the deal done, which both parties want to get done. But often they get distracted by the nonsense that can occur in deal making. And if you've ever been in a deal making situation, you know how hard that is. There's always going to be something. It doesn't matter. Nothing is ever perfect in a transaction. There's always going to be some speed bumps. And I hope sellers listening understand that our goal is to identify them as early as possible and fix them. And that's why we're here. That's why we're here to get the best deal structure and avoid those things from derailing your sale and getting your largest non-cash asset, as you said, converted, invested, and happy. So one thing I want to mention about bigger firms too, in comparison to other individual groups, or just in general, when you're picking out a brokerage firm, look at their listing volume. Having a ton of listings isn't always the best thing. Having none isn't the worst thing. But you want a group that's got some consistent volume and rotation on their site. If you're thinking about selling and you're kind of curious, speak to them, set an appointment, go see, if you can, look them eye to eye. That's always so important. But if not, track their website, see what's coming and going, right, Chris? Look at their tombstone page, see what they've sold, see if they sold something in your industry, in your region, or have an expertise, at least in a similar field where there's overlap. I think too often sellers kind of take the first person that calls them or meets them at a seminar and they sign right up because they get excited. Take a
Yeah.
second to do some homework. And if you really talk to the brokers in the group, you'll find out how good, you'll be able to tell the good ones from the bad ones pretty quick. One thing I want to warn people about too, and we're kind of going to what makes, I think, a bad broker, both either M&A or a no-no. I'm just going to say out there as a seller, you shouldn't be having to do that, especially paying exorbitant fees.
You and I both agree on that, and we don't even charge for valuations. You know,
We
if
work
somebody
on
comes to me and
success.
yeah, so if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm not looking to sell my business. I'd like a valuation," then we might talk about a fee. But if you're truly
Very
interested
minimal too.
in the process, yeah, just enough to cover time and cost. But yeah, let's be blunt. The M&A industry is full of pretenders. There's no doubt about that. You and I see them all day, every day. Some of these brokers are promising sky high valuations just to win your signature. Then they want to lock you into a 5-year agreement. Why are
Yep.
you in a 5-year agreement? Is it going to take you that long to sell the business? That's ridiculous. So, and then they
And the
want to blame the
clawbacks.
yeah, then they want to blame the market when buyers aren't biting, but they've got you locked
Mm-hmm.
in on this high valuation. Eventually, their plan is to just whittle you down, or like Brandon said, they've got that upfront money. So what do they even care? You got other ones out there, they have no real buyer network. They slap together listings using recycled templates. They're not really interested in putting together a summary about your business that
Mm-hmm.
reflects who you are as a company. So please be wary of those who pressure you into signing these exclusive agreements even before they understand your business. If you go to a
That's right.
seminar and you're signing up to sell your business before they've given you an evaluation or anything else, how do they know they can sell your business? And now you're paying them 25, 40, $50,000. That's insane to me. That's
On
not
top of a,
that's the
I
smell of
think that's just
desperation.
tacky. That's
Yeah.
tacky.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
and
Watch out for those predatory clawbacks, right? That
yeah.
engagement letter that, a lot of times if the broker drops the ball, they're still going to have that clawback in place, and there needs to be an out in there. If the broker, I had a client come to me after he'd been with another broker out of Central Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and the broker actually sold his company to another company and was still trying to kind of grab onto that listing or hold on
Hold
to
it
that listing.
hostage. Hold
Yeah.
it hostage.
And he wanted to go back to all those clawbacks in their listing agreement. It's like clients deserve transparency.
This
Yeah.
mass never hear anything. You can't. Wasn't the
Yeah.
quote you? Not the
Yeah.
quote.
That was, and luckily we found a
Funny.
buyer
You
that,
found
oh
some.
yeah, yeah, publicly traded company. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
we were good on that. And we completely,
But hey,
yeah, bud.
I don't know what happened. It just totally crashed for like 30 seconds.
No worries. Mine will do that from time to time too. Just start right in on let's talk about another thing in NDAs and vetting and things like that. So uh I'll just chop that and cut right in.
All right, where am I starting exactly?
You kind of let's back up about 2 minutes. So you were talking about let's talk about another thing. Let's talk about NDAs, and we don't just let
Okay,
anybody into the
got it.
deal. We don't let anybody just look at it. Blah blah blah. Just start at the top of that
Got it.
topic, and I'll cut back in.
All right, I'm gonna do a 2-second pause and start.
Yeah, give me a minute. All right, I'm good.
So, Chris, one thing I definitely want to highlight a good broker should be focused on too is NDAs. We talk a lot about NDAs being important in the industry and people, really enjoying having automated access to those, and allows us to kind of monitor and control our workflow. A good broker should have some form of that integrated, or at least be able to monitor their NDAs appropriately. But it is so important that in this day and age, because it's automated, you have to screen and look at people before you give away information. Like a lot of systems, it's automated where you inquire on a business, it goes right out the NDA, and if someone signs it, they can get access to the deal room. I hate that. No buyer should ever, without being spoken to, talk, checked out, vetted, allowed to just go into the data room and look at tax returns. I think that's insane. You don't know if that person's a competitor. You don't know if that's somebody who's been a tire kicker or a cash flow chaser who we know who those buyers are. It is important that the broker does a little homework on the buyer and says, hey, let me look them up real quick. Are they using a Gmail email? Are they using a company email? Are they using a competitor's email? The seller may say, hey, look, I don't want my competitors to know I'm for sale right away, right? How often do we get that fear? So it's a good broker does a good job of vetting and screening the buyer through the NDA process before releasing any information. I hear buyers say, well, this company just signed the NDA. I don't file any financials out, and I just go look at every business I want. This is not window shopping. This is not Walmart. This is not, Target. You need to have a reason for looking at a business, especially the larger it gets, right? How often, and here's a great joke, or not a joke, I guess, tragic scenario we see. It wasn't a week ago we were talking about, you got 3 or 4 emails from these searchers that all had the same exact landing page, no clue what they
Yeah.
were doing, looking for a business they have no business buying.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you start seeing this trend of they're all emailing from Gmail accounts, which is fine. I don't fault
And maybe
anybody
you don't
for
want to use
having a
your
Gmail
company email
account.
for a personal acquisition.
Sure,
Understand.
sure. I get that, but I would give buyers this recommendation if they're listening. If you're emailing me or any other broker from a Gmail, Yahoo account, something that doesn't tell us
Mm-hmm.
who you are or who you work for, probably want to put a note in your inquiry that kind of details why you're looking at this.
Mm-hmm.
Just I know you're going to sign an NDA and you're going to tell us some more details, but kind of juice us up a little bit. We get so many inquiries on every single listing, and you need to make yourself stand out if you're blending in, and blending in is the Gmail account or the Yahoo account. So that'd be my advice. But yeah, I got these same landing pages. It's like three in a row. They all look the same. They've been set up probably
Same
by
color
this group.
scheme, same language, just
Yeah,
a name is different.
right.
Just terrible.
When I get that, especially on a larger deal, it tells me that these guys just went through some course. They're
All
looking for
hyped
something,
up.
and yeah, this goes back to your vetting process. That's a clear indication that this person is not ready to buy a $4 million
And even if they
business. Now I'm
are,
going to vet
I
them.
need to tread a
Yeah,
little bit slower, make sure we have a good conversation, and find
that's
out
right.
what is this person's
Yeah,
real intentions, not just because you
yeah.
signed up and got a landing page makes you qualified to do something.
Sure, sure. Let me rephrase that. It gives me pause, and red flags pop up in my mind. I'm not saying they can't, but
We
it
have our biases. We've done this
definitely.
so long, we see it coming. And that's but hey, wait, talk about a good broker right there. Having worked in the market, seen how what kind of buyers are out there, we're able to identify that. Right?
Sure,
That's not a
absolutely.
negative, but at the same time, doesn't mean we don't have blind spots. We're not perfect, but a good broker understands what kind of buyers are in the market and how to vet them and how to screen them. And I think that's a topic we haven't discussed a little bit besides NDAs we'll get back to. If you don't know what the market's going to bring to the table and how to vet these buyers and understand the strategy they're going to try and present offers, present themselves, and conduct a deal, that's just as important. What separates even a good business broker from a good M&A advisor is understanding the complications of the LOI process, pegging the working capital, you know, the capital expenditure costs, knowing how to work through these other strategic issues, a stock sale versus an asset sale. A good broker understands both sides very clearly and also how to market the business for the proper approach. Let's talk about that because I know you've got a lot of experience as well as myself there. Certain businesses at a certain size, are going to have to be a stock sale due to contracts and other, let's say, intangibles of that business. You have to know
Yeah,
how to price
yeah,
that business
absolutely.
properly, how to factor in, or if we're doing a stock sale, do we factor in the AR, AP, the working capital being included? If so, does that change the metric of the value of the ad, right? A good broker doesn't just slap on a 4 multiple and throw it out there and say, deal with it. You structure the deal from
Right,
day
right.
one to get there.
Yeah, the structure has to be set up correctly, right? And whether you
Mm-hmm.
go out to the market with an asking price and networking capital has been included or not, your client needs to understand whether it's been included or
Mm-hmm.
not. That way, when offers start coming in, and now the buyer wants networking capital, and maybe that's another $500,000 of value for the buyer. But if you've already informed your client that, hey, when I gave you this value and our asking price already includes that, it's not a surprise. They don't feel like they're giving up $500,000 of AR versus AP in the deal.
That's anticipating the speed bump, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And it's also setting the deal up to be successful to be a transaction. Too often you see people just, this is the way I've always done it, and I'm setting the deal up this way, and I don't care what the buyer's saying. It's like, that's a very hard way to get a deal done.
Yeah,
In smaller
yeah,
deals,
for sure.
typically we talked about this before, they are mostly asset sales, but the bigger deals are stock sales. And there's a lot of more moving parts and idiosyncrasies you need to be aware of to properly execute them and get them done. And that's something I hope as a seller, you ask a broker, what kind of sales my business, when you're interviewing them, what is my sale going to look like? Not just how does the process go, what kind of sales my business is going to take on? Because at that point, you're looking at tax considerations. There's a lot that a good broker can set up a seller for to help prepare for that and help structure the business for that. But let's get back to NDAs real quick. I know we kind of bounced, but I wanted to tidy up this topic. Groups that hold sellers hostage of NDAs, that is a dangerous game. You need to screen them. I don't care if you get hundreds of NDAs. Anybody can get leads by pricing something a certain way. It's going through them properly and identifying them and making sure you pick the right fit for your customer. And we talked about buyer screening. That kind of goes back to that as well. When you automate a process, you have to be prepared to fix it. Just like AI today, anybody can use ChatGPT. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. You have to screen it and read it. I see these groups promising, we're going to show it to everybody, make sure not everybody needs to know that this business is for sale. Let's start back right there. We try to be, as our group is, we're selective, maybe over selective at times, but we're going to make sure that when we bring someone to the table to meet you as a seller, we've already talked to him a couple of times. We've already kind of prepped this seller. We know this buyer. We know what's going on. So when they walk through that door, that's a real and serious buyer ready to do a deal, not someone looking to come ask, well, what if the chef quits? What do I do? You hire a chef. When you get those kind of questions early on speaking with a buyer, a good broker understands this is not the right psychological fit or maybe the right business fit for this buyer. Now, this buyer, even though they may say they want anything making $200,000 cash flow, 400, 500, whatever it is, this is not the right fit for them. And I think often that's an overlooked part of our business. You don't throw spaghetti against the wall hoping it sticks. All right. We're trying to find the best
Yeah.
fit psychologically, financially, and skill set wise.
Yeah, and I think a good broker, here's a good point to go back to. A good broker is going to ask you as a seller, a business owner, what are your goals in selling? Yes, it's to sell the business, but a lot of times that deviates into a lot of different paths,
The
right?
tree branch expanding.
I'm talking to some clients right now, potential clients. They haven't signed yet, but we're talking about those paths right now. They're in their mid 50s. They're not really ready to retire. They've worked for 20, 25 years in the same business. They've owned
They
it
need a new challenge.
together. They're ready for a new challenge, but they're also ready to take a big bite out of the apple. So for me, going out and finding a buyer isn't just throwing it out there and seeing what comes in. It's being strategic about who I'm going to go after. Finding a buyer that maybe buys 80, 75% of the business allows them to roll over that remaining amount, stay in the business for another 5 years. And not every buyer can do that. So for me to just put it out there and let every buyer that inquires about it sign an NDA and give them access to the deal,
doesn't make sense.
that'd be me being a very terrible
Just being lazy.
broker. Yeah, because I'm not doing what my clients expect me to do. And so in that regard, we probably won't even put it out there. This is going to be me reaching out to strategic buyers, much larger, 50, $100 million revenue plus companies, and finding which one of them are open to this type of opportunity. And so you need to ask your broker those type of questions, or can you do this? Or can you be strategic in the way we think about bringing in a buyer? Or are you just going to throw it out there? I know it's going to be confidential for almost any broker. We're not going to, no broker, business broker is going to put your name out there and throw it out there. But that still is going to allow all kinds of traffic in if you're just throwing it out on websites and hoping for the best.
Well, you're right. Think about this. You get a 2 million, 3 million EBITDA business. You're going to get 300, 400 NDAs sent in the first 2 weeks. A good broker has to know to handle that and manage that deal flow for you and know when to bring the right person to ask you a question. Because I guarantee you all 400 of those inquiries want to talk to you tomorrow. And throw aggressive LOIs out there to lock you in. A good broker understands not chasing deals and also understand when they see a deal that's too good to be true. Far too often I see people, we've talked about this too many times, probably me and you privately, just throwing deals at the wall from the buy side, and they're telling the seller everything they want to hear. And we know that's not really the case. We know it's not going to be the finished product. And we have to say, look, this is a great in theory, but you're putting so many loopholes in this LOI that I know you're going to try and claw back and change everything. If you're not confident in what you're putting on the piece of paper, we don't need to be signing it. And I stress that. I mean, how many groups do we see throw an LOI out there that's one page that's just, let me lock this thing in and figure it out? A good broker goes, no, let's get some more meat and potatoes on the bone here so that we as a group can dictate how this deal is going to go forward. I think we talked on one that was really good the other day you got. That was one of the more better ones we'd seen in a while that gave us confidence in this group that they know what they're doing. They want to do it the right way. And we can define some really good terms and strategy. Otherwise, we're just throwing stuff against the wall, knowing it's not going to work in 3 months. Now you've wasted 90 days. The seller's tired. They get deal fatigue. Managing expectations, another point we're making. Good brokers anticipate these issues and get ahead of them. And I would stress it if you have a broker you're interviewing or a firm, ask them about their expectations for you and their timeline on these deals. If they're telling you we're going to get done in 60 days and it's going to close right away, just take a step back. I've been through the reality check world. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'll say when you talk to owners who've gone through a successful sale, there's always a common thread, and it's always the same. They always had someone on their side who understood their emotional, their operational, and their financial complexities of the deal, right?
Yes.
So that a good advisor doesn't just optimize the transaction. They support the person behind the business, the seller, our clients. I've seen deals fall apart because the seller didn't have the right representation. And we've seen others who closed above asking because the advisor knew how to position their business and control that process. You've done that before. I've seen you do it. So this podcast is really, it's not all about finding the right broker. It's also about making sure you don't go with the wrong broker, because that can make a world of difference. There's plenty of good brokers out there. There's great brokers, But then you've got to watch out for those predators that are charging money up front. In my opinion, that's just you said the phrase earlier. I don't mean a slap or a slide against it, but that's actually something I caution you against heavily.
Yes.
Don't write that big check to sell your business. It's unneeded. There's plenty of great brokers out there who don't need that money up front. They give you a business valuation because that's their expectation of what they can sell your
Mm-hmm.
business for. Can you go a little bit above that? Yeah. I tell my clients this: we got to be in the ballpark, though.
Have
If I tell you
negotiation
your
room, as the old saying goes.
yeah, if I tell you your business is worth 2 million and you tell me you got to have four, we shake hands and
Probably not
say,
meant to be together.
yeah. Well, let's remain friends. But yeah, so there's plenty of room. But make sure that you go with a great broker and choose one the right way. Ask all the right questions.
That's right. And like I want to go back to the point I made too. Look at their deal flow and their volume. If that broker's telling you everything you ever wanted to hear and then some, and they don't have any listings or they have minimal stuff going on, they're desperate for activity and they're going to tell you what they want to get you under contract just to lock you in and then hopefully beat you up over time. Something that's realistic and drag the process out far longer than it should be. And I'll say this on the podcast, everybody listening, we don't co-broker with a lot of other outside groups because they don't do a very good job of managing and setting expectations and handling buyers. Far too often we have outside groups want to come in, the broker don't want to do anything. They just want us to hand over work product. They don't advise the other client. They don't bring value to the deal. And they convolute the water just asking for asinine things. A good deal is one that's negotiated. Let's make that clear. As a seller, yes, you want everything to be in your terms, but you're never going to get a buyer to give you everything. You have to be flexible. And a good broker helps you understand that and guide you to make the right things in place to still protect you and get what you want, but you're going to have to be flexible. If you want a broker to sit there and be Mr. Hardass and derail everything, we can easily do that, but you're not going to sell your company. I've heard horror stories of that where brokers say, well, I run the deal. I do what I want. And a seller told him, no, this is my deal. I'm going forward with it. And I can't believe someone said that because that's not your deal. It is these sellers that, yes, you are the transaction coordinator. We are handling, we are the quarterback, but that's the owner of the team that you're working with. You're the general manager. You do not make the play calls. You may run the show, but they get the final say. And you have to remember that as a broker too, that we're doing what you want us to do. You're engaging us to help you. You can listen to us or not. But a good broker understands when that line has to be crossed and when it has to be respected. And far too often, bad groups just either are yes men and do whatever you tell them to do and don't speak up to you, or worse, they tell you everything you have to do and don't work with you. So you have to understand which broker you're engaging, how they're going to be honest and work in a transactional manner like that you want to work with too. You know, one question to those sellers out there, we kind of been mentioning that word, things you should ask your broker. Let's have a quick little topic on that. You know, as a good seller, you should ask the broker, how are you going to maintain confidentiality? And I want to tie in that, yes, a good broker manages NDAs. A good broker writes up good blind profiles. As a seller, you should expect your broker to have understanding of who's the best fit for your business. And I want us to dive into that a little bit. You talked about certain deals you got to be we got to go out searching, right? A good broker knows when to put how much a blind profile to put out there to solicit, but also where to go target, especially for bigger deals, strategic buyers, understanding how to approach those people. If your broker doesn't have a strategy to do that, that's going to be very hard to sell your company. Better brokers develop strategies and ways to get through the gatekeepers to reach out to these groups, besides just Googling. I'd also ask the broker, understand their valuation philosophy. Because Chris, you talked a lot about this, getting ahead of the ball early and valuing a company. The broker, how did you really come to this value? Look at the metrics they use. Understand fully why they're doing what they're doing. The broker just puts, like I said earlier, a 3 multiple, don't worry about it. That's lazy. Mm-hmm. And it's not understanding your business. A good broker breaks down exactly how they came to the value, why that value is important, and all the key metrics and I guess I should say other intangible factors that go into evaluation. When we do one for somebody, it's a multi-page process breaking down the cash flow analysis, market factors, finding comps, and then giving I know sellers aren't going to like this, but our subjective opinion, because we've done this so long, we have to apply that because we know what the market's dictating. Numbers are numbers, the market's the market, and you got to find a nice marriage there. Am I wrong?
No, absolutely. And I think one question you need to ask a broker is, as a business owner, is what is my role as the seller in the process?
Yes.
Because you need to understand, like, what is your responsibilities going to be, if any? Because a lot of brokers may just kind of list it out there and then start throwing clients at you or prospective buyers at you, and they're kind of expecting you to carry the ball to the end zone. Mm-hmm. that.
No. And a good question to ask too as sellers is what is the broker's role in due diligence? Often this is a very, very difficult subject and it's not understood clearly because most people have never gone through a full due diligence phase. We as brokers and good brokers are happy to help facilitate in the manner of making sure everything's taken care of, giving insights. We can't do all the diligence for you. Let's make that clear. I know some people hate to hear that. You don't want that. It creates a transparency issue. A good buyer should do his own diligence. If he's waiting for the broker just to hand himself and say, I'm not going to look at anything, that's going to get you sued. That's going to get the broker sued. That's going to create a problem. We are more than happy to guide and make sure people get the proper documentation, give advice, give structure, but we can't do it for you. And that's one thing good brokers want to tell us. I can't do that role. That's not my role. And I know that's going to sound terrible, but it's true. I can't be your CPA. I can't be your attorney. They have roles and reasons. We can put you in contact with the right people for that. But we also are happy to give our business insights to those experts and say, hey, make sure we look into this. Make sure we guide this. Make sure, Mr. Attorney, there's a proper non-compete. There's a proper overlap here and clawback. They're going to make sure it's done properly, but that's what a good broker does. He brings those extra value, extra tools to support the other professionals involved in the transaction process. And if a broker's not willing to do any of that, that's another red flag, in my opinion, Chris.
For sure. Lots of red flags. I like what you said. Like, I can't be a lawyer, I can't be a CPA, but I can put you in touch with all the right people if you don't have those people already in your corner. Because I've worked with a lot of them and they're really good. And I've vetted them.
Yeah.
I've worked with bad ones too. And they don't find themselves around me much
No, they
longer.
don't.
Yeah. So being in this business and doing this for a decade and a half for yourself, it's like we know the right people to be in touch with.
No, you're right. And we also know how to help give them our professional insights to help. One of the things I hate to hear the words that drive me up a wall. Well, that's market. Okay. Congrats. There's a lot of things that are standard, that are boilerplate. That doesn't mean it applies to this deal. And as a good broker knows how to say, look, I understand the lawyer wants this, but this really doesn't help the deal and it doesn't make a lot of sense. Because there are lawyers, when you have conflicting sides, it's funny how we get red lines that are completely atrocious, that don't make sense. I know you're there to try to negotiate for their client, but you've got a good business attorney understands we're here to get a deal done, not castrate the other side. Bringing back my medical terminology again on you, Chris. I had to bring one in every now and then. But we've got to understand that. And as a seller, a good broker to tell you, make sure who you're using is important. If you have a family attorney who's been your best friend forever and has never done a business transaction, that's not who you need right now. And a good broker tells you that. Like, hey, you need to use this closing attorney. You need to trust their judgment because you're not just bringing them in, you're bringing in their other assets and connections to a deal. And having them matters. A good broker knows when to refer you to a proper QOV advisor or a proper business plan advisor. That's okay. We're there to help do that. And we know who to use. A firm that hasn't done that or had experience with that, it's another red flag, or at least is unwilling to do so. If everything another firm does, you go figure out, you go find this, you go do this, they're not trying to help you. They're just trying to catch a check. And that's tough. That's a very hard way to make a sale happen. And I feel bad for sellers because that would suck. And I would never hope that any of my people ever do that. And if they do, I will jump their freaking ass. I can promise you that, Chris.
There you go.
Not everybody's perfect, but there are a standard that we uphold ourselves to. Having done this so long, that's what it takes.
Absolutely.
I would also encourage you as a seller. I mentioned earlier the tombstone page. I want to go back to that for one quick little note. A broker's transaction history is important. I wouldn't look at their closing rate, what they take on. A giant red flag to me is any broker that says that we close 90% of our deals, 85% of our deals. That's utter bullshit. Again, excuse my language. Unless you take a deal, you grossly undervalue it, then yes, you might sell all of your deals. But if you're selling them for proper value, you should never have a closing rate that high. It's not possible. There are too many factors. And you cannot tell me from start to finish that 90 out of 100 deals you list you're going to sell. That's not going to happen. It's not, Chris. I mean, it's not statistically possible. There's too many factors that can go wrong for that to occur. And if you fall for that as a seller, shame on you. I'm sorry. You heard it here first. No broker closes all that many. Do you want a high closing ratio? Yes. That means a broker's probably pricing things appropriately. It means they're probably doing a very good job of getting financing set up, but no one closes 90%. I'm sorry, unless they're just misvaluing everything completely and undervaluing it. I mean, have you ever seen that? I've done this too long for that to be the case.
Yeah. See it all the time. That's brokers advertise that left and right.
And it's disgusting. It's not true. And as a seller, you have to understand going through the process as well. A good broker is going to tell you your business may not sell. And I know that's what you don't want to hear. You can do everything right and it still may not sell. Ask people who try to go to market before COVID hit, right when it hit. Ask people who went to market before a natural disaster hits. Ask people who went to market and a key employee died or just something just didn't work out. It happens. Be open to it, listen, and ask questions. It's okay to ask us questions. We want you to ask us questions. Just be receptive to what you hear. Don't be blindsided and just ignorant to what the fact we give you, and do your homework. If you do that, you're going to be greatly successful. I think we covered it all, Chris, or at least for the most part, we gave all of you out there plenty of insights to use, maintain, and hopefully execute on as you look for the right advisor to help you, whether it's business brokerage or M&A level. There are a lot of factors to consider. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. I hope you got good insight. Chris, any final notes?
No, just, I tell clients that selling your business is a once in a lifetime event. Choose someone who's going to treat it that way.
Well said. That is an excellent closing line. And on that note, this is the Sepsis Soul Podcast. I am Brandon Bourgeois. That is Christopher Sater. And as always, stay in tune, keep in touch, and we will see you next week. Have a good one.